Okay, I'll just record. All right, yeah. I'll start to record. So Farai, was that your request or you had a question already?
Yes, that was my request. And also maybe if you can put the presentation in presentation mode.
Oh yeah, but then the thing is I will lose, for some reason, if I put presentation mode, I will lose the visuals that I have of people that are on the call. Oh, actually I have not. So that's fine. No, it's working.
Oh, great.
How's
Great.
this? Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So moving along, there's a couple of rules. Don't be shy to ask questions. Like Tendai said earlier on, there is no such thing as a stupid question. We'd like you to ask anything business analysis related. By related, like I said earlier on, it's about delivery, career path, projects, and a whole bunch of things. So these are the rules that we have. And if there are no questions, I'm going to be calling out names as I see them here. I see Lindsay is on the call. There's Malvin. There's Roland. I don't know where Roland is coming from. There's Rachel here, Farai, and Sam. So I'll probably just call on names just to ask you guys if you have any questions, if you don't submit any questions, but that's how we're going to go. So let's start off with the first question, and I'll pose this over to you, Tendai, and Ryan, I would like you to chime in on this as well. I know that there are two questions, but I think they can be tackled in one response, really. And the first question is, how does one really become a BA? And the second part of the question is, how do you move on from an entry-level BA to a senior-level BA? What exactly do you think you need to do for you to graduate to the senior level?
Great, thank you, Garnet. I think this is a common question. If you can go to the next slide on how do you become a BA? I think I just prepared this one slider, and just also to talk from my own experience, right? I think the business analysis profession, I always tell students that I coach, that I mentor, is still very young. I mean, we're not like doctors and accounting, which has been going on for decades, if not centuries, right? This is from early 2000 that they started budding. So a lot of people like me happened to stumble in the BA profession when I started working, right? But I think key here really is you first want to understand what the BA profession is all about and what the key competencies are all about, right? So what does that mean? Speaking to people, looking at job advertisements, seeing what people are looking for in terms of business analysis. Then I always say that people always have what's called transferable skills, right? So you want to reflect back on your career. You want to look at what you've been doing. You'll be surprised that you've been doing elicitation. You'll be surprised that you've been doing solution evaluation, all of these complex terms that have been written in the BA book, right? So reflect on your career and really see what have you been doing, identify any gaps, and then map up a career chart for yourself to get to the next level, right? Then you want to identify a mentor, right? Very important, someone who's seasoned, someone who understands business analysis profession and so forth, right? And then you want to seek out opportunities within your job to see how you can go about just gaining the experience. Put your hand up. You never know until you try, right? And then also training, look out for training opportunities, and also just align your CV to the BA role. I think that's, Garnet, in a nutshell, how I would say to anyone who wants to become a business analyst. Ryan, anything from your side?
Tendai, the thing that I can really resonate with is the mentor. Find yourself a mentor. That's the best thing that you can do, because there's this person who's been there and who's done it, and who can walk you through it. I think the worst piece of advice I was given when I was first starting off is, okay, you want to be a BA, here's somebody, go and shadow them. And I think, oh, look, what can you learn from shadowing? Which is why, like, I think about 15 years ago, I started this, what I call the BA bootcamp. And it was to be able to give people who thought business analysis as a profession was something that they were interested in. So it exposed them to what business analysis is. And then as quickly as possible, you get them to practice it, because practical stuff is the main thing. That's when you're going to learn and say, hey, wait a minute, I can do this, or wait a minute, this is not for me. It's not what I signed up for. And the second thing was, you might not even know it yet, but you've been practicing the art of business analysis already, gathering requirements, eliciting. We use fancy words, but have you ever asked somebody a good question and documented it? Well, great stuff. Yeah, you're on the right track. But also, there's this thing of characteristics, and this is where a mentor can help. If you have a mentor, and if your mentor can really get to know you and say, yeah, this person has an inquiring mind. You have EQ, you can read a room. The softer side of being a business analyst. I hear it all the time where I enjoy making processes more efficient. Like, well, that's what everybody thinks business analysis is, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd like to echo some of your sentiments. It's very important for you to get mentors in life, and not just for business analysis. I think for a whole myriad of things, because a mentor is not supposed to make decisions for you for the most part, but what they do is that they help you to see things in different terms, really. So they open up your lens so that you don't have this blinkered mindset where you're saying this is the path that I'm going to take, and you don't know about different perspectives and different aspects of life. So I think it goes beyond the business analysis profession. Getting a mentor. Getting a mentor is something that has helped me from when I was still in university, really. I started off working for DHL, and I had one of the guys who was a mentor for me, and he was actually one of the senior managers, and he actually helped me to steer my career towards business analysis, because we started researching of what I enjoyed doing. I know that I did not like to write programming or code or something like that. So I knew that the analysis side was the path that I was going to take. So the mentorship aspect actually helps. I definitely agree with that. So on that path,
I just touched on something on mentor, Garnet. I just want to say something on mentorship, because there's a thing of formal mentorship, but then also informal mentorship. It's people or a person that you align yourself with. And I mean, I've never said it to you, but as a young BA starting off, having met you, Garnet, I took you, I saw you as that mentor role, right? And like the conversations we used to have and challenge. That's the stuff that grows you. You're not going to learn it in any textbook. Nobody's going to say it to you, but I can't tell you how important having a mentor is, and even informally.
Yeah, that's great. So choose your friends wisely, Ryan. That is the lesson from that. So I'd like to ask you a question here, and anybody on the call can also chime in. What do you think separates a junior BA, an intermediate BA, and a senior BA? And Tendai, I'd like you to tackle this one first. And I just want to hear your perspective on that. What do you think separates those?
Thanks, Garnet. I think this, I always talk about saying that there's no silver bullet, first of all, right? And it's not about years of experience. I always talk about breadth versus depth, right? So you can get someone who's got 10 years of business analysis experience, but they've just been working on one system doing the same business requirements document, right? Versus someone who's been working on as a business analyst for 5 years, but they've been exposed to lots of projects, they've been exposed to they had the opportunity to apply lots of tools, techniques, they've been exposed to methodologies. So for me, it's really about the depth of experience that you have as a business analyst. Depth in terms of tools that you've applied, in terms of techniques, in terms of exposure to project methodologies, in terms of different exposure to even different industries, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, whatever it may be, right? So for me, when I interview BAs, that is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone to say, I'm a senior business analyst because I've got 20 years experience. I'm like, walk me through what you've done during the 20 years. I want to understand the depth that you have within the profession. So for me, that's very important. And for those of you who are IIBA members, you are aware that there's the competency model version 4.0, where they actually distinguish the different levels, right, of proficiency in each one of the BA block areas. So I'd encourage anyone who's on the call, if you are a member, it's available free for membership. Go in and look at that competency model. They talk about every BA from, I think, from junior right through to senior, and how proficient you must be in each level. They don't talk about years of experience. They don't talk about, the traditional stuff, the bachelor's degree, the CBAP and so forth. No, they are talking about how proficient are you in each one of the knowledge areas and what have you applied, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I'd like to rephrase the question for you, Ryan, because I'd like you to touch on it from a head of IT perspective. When you are looking at junior BAs or senior BAs, what are your expectations from a senior BA in terms of engagement?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing some talking. It would be nice to hear from the guys in the call if this is a reality for anybody. But I'll just start talking so long from a head of IT perspective. I love what Tendai is saying, because for me, you can't put a number to it. You can't put like the number of years experience to it. If I'm looking for business analysis, I'm looking for depth of experience. I'm looking for somebody who can come in and who can easily help facilitate problem solving. Their breadth of knowledge, their understanding of how systems operate, not technical IT systems, but just how systems operate. And by doing that, you're able to know whether a person is okay to be able to handle a small feature versus big complex type effort, type work. And that's how I look at it. You can engage with somebody and you immediately know, okay, this person is suited for this type of work and this person is suited for this type of work. Because in the business world, you have different levels of problem solving that's required. And that's how I fit people to problems.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I used to manage a team of BAs. So when you have a big team, I think I had about 12 direct reports at FNB. So what would happen is that you get all these requests for resources from PMs, and they always tell you, we need someone who will be able to do A, B, C, and D. The one thing that they won't tell you is, I need somebody with 10 years work experience, Tendai, which is what you've said. So what we'd do is that we'd look at the business case, we'll look at the deliverables, what is expected, what is the sphere of influence for this particular role within that BA, so within the project team, and how much influence are you expected to actually have on the organization. So for me, if you have somebody who can communicate the big picture and the small picture and understand the connection between the two, that for me is a mark of a senior BA. Are you able to draw a direct line from a requirement to strategy? If you do not know how to do that, I don't think I can quite call you a senior BA, because if you don't understand strategy, then you don't understand the why for the most part. I once gave this young man, his name was Linesh. He was one of my strongest resources, but he was an intermediate BA. And then he said, gee, how do I become a senior BA? And I drew 2 boxes. So on the whiteboard, I put in ownership of the company. And at the end of the spectrum, I put in the end user, somebody who's typing in records, right? And I said, you need to be able to connect those 2 dots to see how much decisions that are being made by the owners of the company translates to what the person who is doing the donkey work is doing. And you as a BA, you need to be able to connect the dots. All the projects that you're working on, how do they relate to the owners of the company? Because that is the why. These business targets, you need to understand what is the business trying to achieve? And then you need to be able to dumb it down to the person who's doing the data capturing. If you cannot communicate from those 2 ends and from those 2 spectrums, then you're not ready.
Can I put something else there?
Yes.
That's really good. I would have then also drawn like a toolbox. Okay, let's chat now, Linesh. Let's tell me all of the tools that you have in your toolbox. I can do user story maps. I can do facilitation. I can do system thinking. I can do design thinking. Let's talk. I mean, because that's the stuff. The more tools you have, you know when to bring it out and how to use it given the situation that you're in. The senior BA for me is that person. Put them in whatever situation. You Bear Grylls. Whatever environment I put you in, you're going to survive. That's the thing.
I agree.
And just to add on that, apologies, Garnet,
go ahead.
what Ryan has said. One thing I always tell business analysts is that this work that we do is all about people. So soft skills, I cannot emphasize. There's no way you can do elicitation or even get requirements if you do not know how to relate to people, right? One of the trending competencies or one of the trending skills for the BA profession over the past 2 to 3 years has been the concept of emotional intelligence, right? The ability to see your environment. How do you relate to people? I look at soft skills, people skills, because stakeholder engagement, fostering stakeholder engagement is at the heart of what we do as BAs, because you can't elicit requirements from people if you cannot really relate to those people. So over and above tools, techniques, and so forth, I see it as a pyramid. The base is how do you as a person relate to people. If I can see that you can interact with your stakeholders properly and so forth, then elicitation will come naturally and so forth. So that's
today I wanted you to hold your thought, because I've got a question that's going to tackle that specific question that you have. So I'd like to open up the floor right now to anybody who's on the call who's got a question, a burning question, based on the conversation that we've been having so far. Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd like us to address? Come on, guys, speak up before I start calling out names, because I can see Rachel is here. I might come with you first. Farai, go ahead, sir.
Yes, guys. Thank you for this discussion. Really, it's quite intriguing. I wanted to know how much does professionalism, say, within a certain industry play a part in this discussion here? Like for instance, I could have, say, 6 years knowledge within the fintech industry, Like for instance, I know insurance like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
How much does that play?
That is a very good question because I get asked that a lot. So I'm gonna start answering the question, then I'll pass it on to you, Tendai and Ryan, just to hear your thoughts on this, because my opinion is nothing really. I honestly could not care less how much industry experience you have to say I'm an expert in insurance, I'm an expert in media, because I think business analysis is a transferable skill. If you have the underlying competencies, there is this one, I don't know, is it a tool or is it a technique? The skill of learning. Tendai, you're the expert here. Is it a tool or is it a technique? What is it?
You're taking the words out of my mind. I was going to speak exactly that. It is.
I know you too well, but then just answer the question.
It is a competency.
Is it a competency? Okay, that, yeah.
Correct.
So Farai, going back to your question, if you know how to learn new things, which is for me a key component of what a BA should be bringing to the table, then you're okay. As long as you know how to ask the right questions, as long as you know you've got that transferable skill where I can put you in front of people and you'll be able to facilitate a conversation. You don't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert. That's why we have subject matter experts in industry. I don't want you to know about products and pricing in insurance. Does it help if you know? Absolutely. But if you have strong BA skills and you're working on a project where you say you're building a new platform for insurance pricing, then I'd rather take the guy who's more competent from a BA skill set perspective than somebody who has spent 50 years working in the industry, but they do not know how to speak to people. They don't know how to perform this art of problem solving, which is what business analysis really is. It's an art of solving problems, identifying opportunities so that you'll be able to enable business to meet its goals. So do we put stock in that? I don't put that much stock in it. I usually look at the individual. Do you have the basic fundamentals of a BA? And then I'll be able to hire you. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree with me?
I totally agree with you. I think business analysis skills are totally transferable. If I sit back and think about having skin in the game or knowing an industry, I think it's easier for you to step into the role brand new. It's difficult to go to a different industry and start being a business analyst from scratch. So if you've got knowledge in the area, I think it's a good place to start. But once you've started and you've got the skill, absolutely transferable. We're going to talk about it a bit later. We talk about where business analysis can go, and then you'll see why I say it's totally transferable.
Tendai, do you have anything to add? Because I want to bring in a different.
Let's move on.
Okay,
Let's move on. I think you guys, I agree with you guys.
Yeah, I wanted to expand on that as well, Brian, around having industry knowledge versus not having industry knowledge. How do you think that impacts innovation, especially if you have these preconceived notions about a certain industry? Because for me, if you're a BA and you're identifying opportunities, I'd like you to be innovative. And you know what drives innovation is fresh perspective and new thinking. Whenever I'm building a project team and we're trying to think outside the box, I actually don't want somebody who has worked in industry before. I like somebody who's got a fresh set of eyes, somebody's going to bring a different perspective. So if, let's say, you've worked in the media company and then we're working in fintech, you are going to bring the slight nuance to the conversation that we did not have. So in fact, I might actually say, no, I actually want somebody who's got fresh ideas. So for me, that helps with solving problems and coming up with innovative solutions.
Absolutely. It's a bit of both though, because you want diversity of thought, 100%. But in some cases, you do need some specialization. So I'm very, very opinionated on lots of things. And what I find as I get older and more experienced and I've got more grace,
and wiser,
I'm becoming very balanced, right? So you can see it's not one or the other. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. So yes, when you're setting up a new team, I definitely think you want new, fresh people with fresh ideas. You want some people who've probably been there for a while, because together you can come up with a better solution.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to move on to the next series of questions, because this is now talking about the BA career path. It's a question that I always get. Should I be a lifelong BA? Is BA BONO, or there is something that is after this profession, as it were? But before we tackle those questions, I would like to open up the floor again to say, are there any other questions that we have? regarding
Or any
the topic?
comments, or
Or any
does
comments
anybody
or any thoughts?
disagree with what we said?
Reggie, are you on the call or you just logged in just to get the CDU hours?
You're funny. How's it, Ryan? Good to see you tonight.
How's it, Reggie?
No, I'm logged in. Yeah, it's a great conversation we're having. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Do you have anything that you want to add on to what we're talking about regarding the how being a BA, being maybe an industry expert, and how that really impacts your hiring practices at DVT?
Funny enough, we do have a big telco client that we signed up in end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the meetings, the first meetings that we had with them was, if you're going to bring us BAs on this new account, on this new arrangement, don't give us anyone with telco experience. And
so you're on my side.
Bring us
Yes!
someone who's coming from an insurance background, bring us someone who's coming from a banking background. Don't bring us someone who's coming from another telco, because they're just going to bring the very same solutions that probably don't work there, and or probably a solution that they've worked halfway through and they haven't done like a benefit analysis of it, right? So it's quite interesting that we do get some BAs that we get to assign to that client. And firstly, the BAs are quite inquisitive to learn something new in that industry. And secondly, the client themselves are quite interested to see how people come into that space and they start challenging some of the solutions that have been developed or some of the thinking that goes around it. So, because, I mean, with business analysis, it's all about exploring, it's all about discovering new things. Yep. So, yeah, I totally agree. But obviously, at times, there has to be a balance of both. Yep. So obviously, you can't bring someone who's like completely blank. And yeah, so it has to bring in a balance.
Okay, thanks for that, Reggie.
Can I challenge your
go ahead.
Your position there, Garnet, just to provoke some thought, right? The more I think about it, it's the system that you're working within that probably needs to change a bit, right? So it's not the problem of the person having experience, because if you reframed that experience, and if you created an innovative environment, and you teach people how to be creative, and in my opinion, the person with the experience might come up with better solutions, better ideas, better creativities. Just read a book now, Big Little Breakthroughs. It's not people from different industries who came in to solve a problem. You just were able to solve a problem. Where I think it is very valuable is when you have a person who's been in analysis for a long time and has been doing different projects and different industries, that person can go into a fresh industry and provide fresh insight. You take a BA who's been practicing for a few years. I don't know how valuable it is for that person to go into financial services now and try to come up with a blockchain solution.
Yeah, so interesting perspective. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's all about what solutions you come up with, right? And I agree with you for the most part. So let's move on to the BA career path. And tonight, I'd like you to tackle this one first, because we get this a lot. What other roles can a BA take, and what is the career path of a BA? So let's say somebody says, you know what, I've done this business analysis thing and I'm tired of it. What else is there for them?
Yeah. Well, I think I can relate to this question from my own career, right? I started off as a junior, I moved on to intermediate, I moved on to a business analyst, right? And from there on, there's also management role. There's BA team lead, there's BA practice lead, which I was, right? There's also kind of like specialist roles. Right now, like I said, I am practicing as a product owner at GS1 Canada. So there's product ownership. There's, if you look at IIBA itself and the certifications that they're offering, there's now cybersecurity, right? There's a certificate in cybersecurity. There's a certificate in data analytics and so forth. There's process management, right? Those are the specialist areas. There's managerial areas, like I said, which is BA practice lead, BA team lead, transformation manager like you, Garnet, head of IT like you, Ryan, right? There's also consulting, training, advisory. the beauty about the profession that we're in is the whole concept of transferable skills, which we've been talking about the past few. I can tell you guys, the world is your oyster, right? You can go, you can literally, it depends really what you're passionate about. So in my instance, for example, I'm really passionate about teaching, imparting knowledge. So I found myself leaning towards the training part, right? As well as consulting. And of course, in my day-to-day, I'm doing product ownership. So the sky is the limit. Get your experience, get your exposure, and you can definitely go into specialist, managerial, or training, consulting, advisory.
Yeah, so Ryan, before I pass on the ball to you, I want to ask you tonight a follow-up question regarding your current role as a product owner. How do you think you would have done if you didn't have the business analysis background and you were just thrown in the deep end and all of a sudden you're a product owner? And just tell me, just talk to that question really.
Right, you know what, I feel like I think I read a statistic on the IIBA website that 33% of business analysts right now are practicing product ownership without even knowing it, right? For me, business analysis is like the trampoline or the stepping stone into product ownership. I don't think I would have been as effective as I am in my role without the fundamental problem solving skills, analytical skills, conceptual modeling skills, you name it, all of those skills and competencies that Reggie spoke about in the last event, right? Which we gain as BAs. Those have enabled me to really perform in my current role. So I feel like it was a great platform, business analysis, to go. I don't think I would have been as efficient as I was without the BA background.
Thanks. Yeah, Ryan, so as you're answering this question, I'd like you to probably just put on your hat of head of IT as well. And then I'd like you to answer this question, like if you look at your org chart, people that are within your team that report to your vertical, and just give me like a breakdown of the opportunities that you'd consider somebody with a BA background on. And how do you think the BA skill sets up somebody for success in other roles?
But first of all, I'm going to say, isn't the career path, you go from test analyst to BA, then from BA to PM?
Yeah, that's just with old thinking. Yeah, I hope there are no PMs on this call, but I don't like project management, to be honest. I think it's a very much antiquated role. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but yeah, I've got my own.
So guys, so when I started in the business analysis field, that was it. Like you went from there, you went to the next one, and your career path was basically mapped out. And it was fascinating to have this discussion. I was introduced to a guy called Robin Grace. He was actually a big part of the IIBA here in South Africa, and he wrote an article, why the best CEOs were once BAs. And I read that article and it clicked. I was like, that's what I want to do. I care about businesses. I care about people. I care about solving problems. This role that's called business analyst gives me all of that. No matter what you call me and no matter what's required, those are the skills that I'm going to do and take into my next role. So as a head of IT, I've got IT operations managers, I've got Scrum Masters, developers, development teams, product owners, all of this reporting in. And in every one of those, you could possibly use business analysis skills. Obviously, if you're an automation tester or if you're a developer, there's technical coding skills that you're not going to have. But even then, coding is the art of problem solving. So you need to be able to solve problems. I totally agree with Tenda. The world is your oyster. There's nothing that you cannot do. So I'm totally on that page. I mean, I take myself as an example. What started off in a call center straight out of university, got into business analysis. From there, it was leading development teams, being CRO, reporting into boards. Now, I mean, we're just going through a board season now where we're busy doing reporting. It's the same thing. I'm using all of my business analysis skills every day. So if people say, when did I stop being a business analyst? Haven't, still do it today. What would you call me? I'd still say I'm a junior BA. Still learning.
Thanks for that. So I'm not going to add anything on top of that, but I want to do is I want to call out some people that are on the call just to find out if they have any questions. Noma Temba, do you have any question for us? Oh, You're on mute if you're saying something. I'll come back to you. Roland, any question?
No, I'm all right for now.
This guy's got to send him that is, Sam is mine. Maybe he's my brother. Lindsay, do you have any question for me? Or for us, sorry. Lindsay, are you there? Nothing there. Rachel.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Rachel.
So my question was mainly on the BA roadmap or journey, but that has been answered by Tendai. Thank you, Tendai. I have another question, maybe just a clarity on that. Is it a must for a BA to have data analytics knowledge, for example, Power BI, or is just another skill to have, which is not a must for a BA to have?
Thanks. Good question. Tendai, I want to pass this on to you.
Thanks, Garnet. Rachel, great question, right? I think depending on the environment that you're in, depending on the job that you do, right? It is not a must. Like I said, data analytics is a branch. You can branch into that and decide to specialize in that. There are so many tools. I mean, there's no way anyone can be proficient in so many tools that are out there, right? So if it's the requirement for your job, or if you want to upskill, by all means go, but it is by far not compulsory to have business data analytics. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, let's go on. Ryan, do you want to add on to that?
I'd love to, and not to be too controversial, but I firmly believe a good BA, besides the soft skills now, process and data go hand in hand. You can't separate the two. I've seen the most successful BAs have an intimate knowledge of how data works and operates. We fundamentally work with building computer systems, and I'd even take it a step further. It's process, data, and engineering. Those three things, I think, are the foundations of good business analysis. So I'd highly recommend that you become very proficient with data. Certainly not a must. Certainly not a must, but I don't think the two can operate without each other.
Yeah, so Ryan, I think there's a distinction that we need to clarify here between data analytics and understanding data, because I think they're two different things. Because if you look at data analytics, that's like a profession, like what Tendai said, which is a branch where you're saying, I want to specialize in data analytics, and it's not necessarily a business analyst, as it were. So it's something that you can actually say, business intelligence, this is my path. I want to pay in the data space, and then there is the appreciation that you're talking about, Ryan, where you understand the alignment of process and data and the convergence of those two aspects of analysis, which is definitely a valid point.
Great.
I agree with that.
Fair point.
Yeah. Farai, do you have a question for us? Or even Reggie? I know, Reggie, you're an expert in business analysis. Maybe you might have a question. You might actually learn a thing or two. Do you have anything?
At this moment, I'm like Roland. I've got no question.
Oh, right. Farai, do you have a question before I move on?
No, not at the moment. I think, yeah.
We've covered it. Okay, Sam, are you on? Nothing. All right. So let's talk about the hiring process of business analysts. Ryan, I want to start off with you there. If you are hiring a BA, what exactly are you looking for, and how do you expect BAs to respond to questions?
I'm looking for somebody who can think out of the box, who can answer questions differently. I've actually long since stopped the normal process of get a CV, ask the normal questions. I rather put people into almost like a business case type scenario, just to see how they think and how they operate. I've also started with all role types, but if you want to talk about business BAs specifically, put them into a situation with the team and just get them to do some rapid prototyping together for an hour or two. Quick problem, just to see if they can bring a room together. And it could just be 2 or 3 other people from the team to focus on solving a problem, and then to facilitate getting to how to solve the problem. And it could be random things like let's plan for a birthday party, something like that. You just want to get a feel for how somebody thinks, how they operate with other people in the context of a team. I think that's the way to interview. And the way we started doing it is you give people some prep before they get to the interview. But I've definitely stopped interviewing the normal way, in inverted commas.
Good point. Tendai.
Can I just say something there?
Yes, I was going to come to you, Reggie. Just
Ryan?
give me 1 second. I'm going to come to you. Okay,
Ryan,
Reggie, you
if you-
go,
if
and
you-
then I'll go to you, Tendai. Reggie, go ahead.
Okay, great.
Ryan, if you're gonna bring me in to do some rapid prototyping with your team, you gotta pay me for the contribution I'm gonna make on that. Yeah, because I'm already contributing to an initiative that you're working on, and I haven't been hired as yet.
Yeah. So Reggie, but then you
Fair.
asked the question though, Reggie. I think you interview a lot of BAs. What exactly are you looking for in a competent BA, especially on the senior side?
For me, I had put in my comments earlier on about people who consider themselves to be senior to say, yes, I agreed with everything that you guys said, but just to add on to that as well is to say, what has been your contribution to the business analysis, practice within your organization, within the community as well? Okay. How do you get to improve the business analysis effort or process that people within your organization go in? How are you trying to mature that? Why do you consider yourself to be a senior BA? Because if you come to me and I'm interviewing you and you tell me you've got 10 years of BA experience, I'll ask you, so do you consider yourself intermediate, junior, or senior? I won't take it off the cuff that you are senior. So then when you say you're senior, I ask you, why do you think you're senior? So you have to show me or demonstrate some hallmarks of a senior BA. What has been your contribution to the profession? Yeah. So for me, when I interview, I'm looking for people who are passionate. I'm looking for people who are obviously inquisitive, people who want to learn, right? Because it's always a learning experience or a learning profession when you're a BA.
Yeah, thanks. Tendai, you wanna add on to that?
Yeah, great points. I think I'm also with Ryan on this one, in terms of case studies. I've been doing case studies since my consulting days when I was still consulting for the 4 big banks in South Africa, right? But over and above that, I look at 3 things, right? When it comes to knowledge, I look at what's called conceptual knowledge, right? So really, how do you understand the BA domain, right? Then I look at procedural knowledge, which is what Ryan was touching on, the practical application of business analysis. I throw in a scenario. I remember one question I always love to ask: how would you explain what a database is to a 5-year-old, right? If you can talk through normal plain language, then I'm happy, then you'll be able to explain concepts to developers, right? And then I also look at organizational knowledge. Even if you aren't in the industry, have you done some research? Have you gone out there to see, who are the major competitors? What is the industry all about? And then of course, experience, which is the depth versus the breadth, right? And of course, the skills, like we said, the soft skills. So more on that. I'm actually doing an article right now for Blue Apple Consulting, which will be going on our website, so you guys can check it out in the next few weeks.
Thanks for that. Yeah. If there are no more questions from the group, I'd like to touch on the fund.
I've got a
Ryan,
question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I'm making an assumption here. There's all BAs on the call. How do you think you're perceived by your fellow delivery teams?
You mean
just
as
you as a BA?
Okay.
Yes.
So just hang on, Ryan. So before we answer the question, Farai, I think your hand was up. Do you have a question or you want to add on to the conversation that we're having now?
Yeah, it is a question. Okay, I'm just going to take it maybe a step back. Maybe just turning that tables now. Say I'm a candidate now. I want to apply for a job, say at DVT. I've seen a post for a BA, and I think I do qualify for that post.
Yeah.
Say how should my resume look like? Maybe for them ready to then pick it up and say, okay, I want to hear from Farai. Yeah, you understand where I'm coming from here.
Yes. So it's a CV preparation, like how you're supposed to prepare a BA CV and how is it different to other roles, I guess. And Reggie, so he called you out by name. I don't know if you want to respond to this and then I'll come back to you, Tendai and Ryan. And then, Reggie.
Firstly, I would say don't send a 5-page CV, okay? Because there's 100 people, when a post is advertised on LinkedIn, hundreds of people respond to that, all right? So no one has got time to go through 5 pages of a CV, okay? Give me some taglines. If you know that I'm looking for a data person, let there be some tags on your CV that shows that you do data. Is there something that says Power BI? Is there something that says SQL? Is there something that says Python or something like that? Okay, so those are the key things that I'm gonna be looking for. And even if it's a 1-page CV, all I want is let it introduce you to me, let it intrigue me to want to meet you so that we expound more on your experience. Because there's a whole lot that I'm gonna be asking you when we interview. So now tell me, what type of projects have you been exposed to? The type of stakeholders you've ever engaged with? What documentation have you produced? What artifacts have you produced? You know, but let it be that 1-page CV or that 2 or 3-page CV that makes a very nice, intriguing introduction of you to me. That intrigues me to wanting to meet you. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you're raising here. And I'd like to bring in a different aspect to this conversation, Ryan, before you answer this question. Because right now, let's say a company is recruiting and then they receive hundreds and hundreds of applicants. For the most part, now companies are using bots to do initial screening. And the only way it does that is by those taglines, Reggie, that you're talking about. Does this person has this in their CV? And then that's how you make it to the next stage where the recruiter is actually looking at the CV. So from the thousands, that's how they screen, usually using bots. And that's how it's working, which is something that you can dupe the system because you just put those taglines, then you know that you go to the next level, which is, so that's why referrals now, I put more value, more stock in referrals more than people just applying from all over the place, but that's the harsh reality of life, unfortunately. Ryan, you'd like to tackle this question around CVs?
I agree with you. I mean, Reggie makes a good point. I mean, guys, I'm terrible to say this, but I've stopped looking at CVs a long time ago. Referrals are critically important. If you're going to put a CV together, maximum 2 pages, nice infographics, get to the point. Tell me, like, show the value of the stuff that you've done before. You know, like, your CV must stand out. Rather say, instead of I worked on X projects or I've got this amount of experience, say I saved X company 20,000 whatever. I've worked on 10 projects that hit its ROI. Like, those are, like, you're not talking about measurables. You're talking about things that we can relate to and with.
Yeah, that's interesting. Tendai, how would you get enticed by a CV when you have 50 sitting in front of you?
You know, at the start of the pandemic, when our organization was hiring BAs, I think we'd have over 400 CVs. Guys, I'm not lying, right? 400 CVs for a job posting here in Ontario, right? So of course we use criteria. Are you here in Ontario? Are you a permanent resident? Can you work and so forth? But once we narrowed it down, of course, there was the application tracking system, the ATS that you guys are talking about, right? But once you narrowed it down, you had to look at the CV, right? So when I look at CVs, right, especially for BAs, when you think about a BA should be a problem solver, they should be a change agent, and they should be a value creator. So over and above listing, yes, I do elicitation, listing and listing, I want to see how you've demonstrated that. Talk me through your projects. I always say to the people I mentor, your CV is your brand. It's the first thing that I'm going to see about who you are. So if you have that one project that you know you demonstrated a lot, right? Let your CV tell the story, because you want that to entice me to then call you. The whole listing of roles and responsibilities is so out of date now. Like, you know, I did this. Yes, you might need to do it for the tags to get, you know, through the ATS, but really we need that one story that I want to call you into the interview and tell me more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting point that you're raising here in terms of you're saying, tell me the story. Ryan is saying, get to the point. So how do you strike a balance between those two so that you don't want to have a lengthy CV, but you still want to tell the story? Ryan, how would you balance that? Because the length of CV seems to be something that Reggie has raised, and Ryan kind of alluded to it, maybe not directly. You did not put in like a hard line in the sand to say it has to be 2 or 3 pages. But how do you then strike the balance between, I don't want a lengthy CV, I'm erring on the side of brevity, but I still want to tell the story?
Yeah, I think it's important to not just advertise a role. I'm looking for a BA anymore. It's be specific. I'm looking for a BA. I want you to be able to solve this problem. Here's a case study that that you can work on. Tell me how you'll solve it. And I'd pre-screen like that. The guys with the best answers, I probably want to meet.
Okay. Ryan, you know what? Sorry, I'm gonna ask a follow-up. So how would you send a case study to 400 applicants? Because there has to be a way that you narrow it down, which is what Tendai was saying. I don't think it's feasible for you to reach out to all hundreds of them. And even I don't think you even have time to review the answers.
Yeah. So we've been very successful just posting on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And you get responses there. So the channel to get CVs in now, it's changing as well. So we post on LinkedIn, and that's how we've been getting CVs in.
Yeah.
Applicants in.
Can I add one thing? Apologies,
yes, please.
Garnet,
Yes, please.
which might be controversial. One thing that we also looked was the whole topic of certifications. I will not lie to you. If we advertise a role with CBAP, right, we're going to also filter through CBAP. So I know the whole thing of certification is controversial, but I just want to put it out there to say we looked at that as a criteria. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'd like to agree with that. The credential is quite important, especially if you I had to say this, but I'm going to be very honest. So let's say you're behind the 8-ball, where you are starting at a certain disadvantage. The certification gets you another bump up in terms of what gets considered, because sometimes you get white people that get opportunities that they don't really deserve. You know why? Because they know people there, of which for us blacks, we kind of have to do a little bit of extra to get a foot in the door. It's a harsh reality of life, and having that credential has helped me to be invited to certain interviews that I haven't even applied for. Because you know how they do a search, Ryan, on a LinkedIn database? They use keywords, right? CBAPs that are best in Vancouver. They do a search and then your name appears there. It helps for them to even reach out to you. It's a harsh reality, but that it is what it is.
So, and Garnet, I absolutely agree with you. You know, if you had asked me that question 2 or 3 years ago, I was dead set against certification. But sometimes it is required to just get your foot in the door, literally. And now in this machine learning age or AI age, it's even more, because you won't even pass the first gate if you don't have the certification. So literally, I'm now going to get certified against my better judgment, just because. And it's horrible to say.
Yeah. Can I chip in quickly there? What I noticed is, I mean, I worked in the South African corporate industry, like I said, in the financial service sector for almost 10 to 12 years prior to coming to Canada. What I noticed is that the certifications in South Africa, they were looking for FTIBA diplomas, which I did, right? That's what they were looking for. I don't know if it's changed. But coming here overseas, CBAP is a universal language. They're looking, because there's so many immigrants, right? So they're looking for, because it's a universal language, that's the only way they can screen. So here it's a prized position. I cannot, Garnet, you know that. That's how we were streamlined or linked into our jobs, versus back home where it's still, they're still looking at local training. But I can tell you, if you have your mind set on overseas opportunities and so forth, it's a universal language. It shows people that you understand the same language, especially if you're going to be an immigrant, right? So it's quite valued.
Yeah, but Tendai, sorry, Garnet, I know you want to say something. But what I think you can easily see is you can easily see a candidate who's done certification just for the sake of doing certifications, versus you've done a certification to affirm the experience that you have. So I've seen job advertisements. We're looking for a BA, 3 years experience, must have FTI. Now you've got somebody who hasn't even done a stitch of business analysis, and now you've got an FTI certification, and now you can go and apply for a job. I'm like, but you've done it. And so we need to talk about this mentorship thing. I've seen more than 50 people come to me and say, Ryan, I like business analysis. I see that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go do FTI. I'm like, but why? You got 0 to add to that FTI class. Like,
no, that's a good point. Yeah. So the certification for me, for the most part, is some sort of a validation that you probably know what you're doing to begin with, and then we will take the conversation from there. I'd like to move on, guys, from this topic. But before we move on, I'd like to ask Farai. I don't know if we really answered your question, because I don't think we gave you a straight answer. But do you have any follow-up questions, Farai, before we move on to the next category of questions?
No, I think you really answered it. Yeah,
Okay.
I've heard all angles and really, thank you very much.
No worries. Yeah, Reggie, your hand was up.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to, you guys have touched on everything, but to Tendai's point, yes, if I'm looking for a for a BA, if I see something that says CCBA or CBAP, definitely I'm going to require some time with you to chat. FTI, yes, in SA the landscape is changing because obviously, remember, FTI are the guys who introduce business analysis. I'm saying that in quotes, to SA. So
yeah,
if anyone ever thought about business analysis, it was FTI, but the landscape has changed. Even with government itself, you see that they put out RFPs out there and they're asking for consultants with IIBA certifications. So the landscape is changing. And to Ryan's point as well, yes, at times there are people you meet, they've done certification for the sake of certification, but at least it gives you that audience to say, that chance for someone to invite you for a chat, right? So when you're invited for that chat, now you need to show that you can back up your certification with the knowledge, with the experience that you have gained. So definitely certifications for me, they work.
Yeah, and I also want to expand on that as well in terms of how much you expand your horizons with a certification, because the pandemic has taught people one thing, that you can be productive working from home. So you don't have to think about the Zim economy as your own limiting factor in terms of where you can be employed. So if you want to expand your horizon, you want these overseas opportunities, you can be based in Zim, but be employed by a Canadian company now. The pandemic has taught people that it is possible. So how do you get your foot in the door? Your CV will obviously speak for you, but a certification kind of validates your skills and competency. So those things actually go hand in hand. You have to think outside the box. I've got some friends that are now working for American companies, and I think those have been some of the positives, if we can find any from the pandemic, where companies have now realized you can be productive working from home. Do I like working from home all the time? Probably not, because I think as a BA, you're probably much more productive if I'm standing in front of people, where you're reading people's body language, especially when you're facilitating a big workshop. It's very, very challenging doing it online. But there's always the other side where our horizon has actually expanded because of the fact that the pandemic has taught people you can be productive working from everywhere. So your CV can speak for you, whether locally or internationally. That's what I wanted to add to this conversation. Ryan, I don't know, you wanted to say something before I move on?
I think it's an absolutely valid point. The world's now,
okay.
The market is bigger, and I think in that case, certifications and CVs have a big role to play.
Yeah. So we had a couple of people that joined us. So we've got Rudo and Moira. Do you guys have any questions specifically that you wanted us to address before we move on to the next line of questions? So I'm just reading the names that I'm seeing on this. Rachel again, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. So about certifications, you are mentioning CBAP. Are there other certifications that you look out for, or is just a CBAP, CCBA?
So that's a good question. It depends on which role you're applying for, really, because I think the IIBA certifications are best on your years of experience and where you really fit in. But if you want to work in an agile space, there is some agile certifications that you can do. If you want to work in enterprise architecture, there's also other certifications like TOGAF. So essentially, I think maybe for me, the rule of thumb is it an internationally recognized certification that can be accepted globally, which is what Tendai kind of alluded to. CBAP is a globally accepted credential. So I think for me, that would be my rule of thumb. Is it an internationally recognized certification? Can it be accepted everywhere? I guess that's what I would say on that. So don't just think IIBA certifications. Will I advise that if you're in the BA space? Absolutely. But there's others depending on where your passion lies. I'm not here to tell you that business analysis is for everyone and that's be or end all. There's other certifications out there that are getting people paid. Amazon Web Services, a lot of people are getting into that because there's opportunities that are expanding over there. So I'll probably recommend that you do your research, find where your passion lies, and then you invest time in that particular space. All right. I don't know how you're doing for time, guys, because this is now 13 past. We can probably push on for another 10 minutes and then we'll wrap it up. Ryan, how are you doing on time?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
This is
Tendai, how are you doing on
good
time? Do you do another
conversation.
10 minutes?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. So I want to move on to the question around delivery and project methodologies. And Ryan, I want to start with you first. What methodologies do you have in your organization, and how do you expect BAs to interact and behave in such project environments? Because you have companies that use Agile, some are still using your waterfall methodologies, and there's other methodologies. Can you just touch on those 2 points, please?
This is one of my big passions. So we're pretty much a lean startup type organization. So we use the Agile sort of method. So we've got design thinking together with Scrum for delivery, and then lean startup that's in the middle. So if you take it from left to right, it's really, can you empathize with your customer to really articulate the problem correctly? Can you then ideate? Can you do rapid prototyping to come up with ideas? And then you go through a 2-week sprint cycle and we come up with something at the end of 2 weeks. I think that's the best way that I've seen to be able to get the best value out there. Where do my BAs fit in? It's in the Scrum team. So as you see there, the Scrum team, my BAs are part of the Scrum team. I really see the product owner as different. And in my very contentious view, I don't ever think a product owner, and I don't believe in the proxy product owner as well. Product owner and a BA are two very different things in my world.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Tendai, would you like to expand on that? Because you're playing the role of a product owner. So I prepared this slide because I was just trying to show what a typical Scrum team looks like, because these are different roles that people actually take. And as a BA, I've seen them being part of the Scrum team, which is what Ryan has described. But I've seen BAs becoming product owners for the most part. And they're representing the business and the stakeholders, and they're representing the business owner. So Tendai, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I think in my experience, like I said, I'm currently practicing as a product owner, but I do have a business analyst in my team. I do have a user experience designer in my team. So similar to what Ryan is saying, we run design sprints, especially when we get thrown a problem and we're not sure about solving it, right? I know the whole premise with Agile is faster delivery to market, deliver now. At the end of a sprint, you must have working software. But I think we've taken a step back and said, guys, before we deliver working software, we really need to get at the heart of our customer for our product, right? So that's why we've now incorporated design sprints and so forth within our team. So our Scrum team, I've got a BA, I've got a UX designer, of course, developers and quality assurance analysts, right? And then we do have a Scrum master, which I feel is a controversial role. And then we've got our product owner, because what they've done in my organization, they've turned all of our PMs into Scrum masters. So you can just imagine, that's a story for another day. Let me just park it.
Yeah. So yes,
drama, but it's just not good.
So the one thing that I'd like to add to this conversation is the fact that there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to Agile implementation. So when you're a mature organization, you should be able to tailor the Agile practice and thinking to your own organization and make sure that it works for you. Because ecosystems. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm gonna hard disagree with that.
Okay,
but that's,
I like that.
That's like that's a whole nother topic. But carry on.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not a purist when it comes to Agile. There are some things that I would tailor to the organization depending on the environment and what works. I know that the Agile book will tell you that you need to have daily scrums. I don't have daily scrums. We meet twice a week. You know why? Because of commitments, and people don't have a lot of time. So for me, I've got strong opinions when it comes to Agile. I'm an Agile certified practitioner, Ryan, so you have to be careful when you challenge me. But for the most part,
we can box it.
When it comes to
that
Agile,
sounds like a threat.
It is a threat. So when it comes to implementation, I think that yes, there is the purest way of implementing Agile within an organization, but it has to be tailored to work within that environment. Brian, disagree? Go ahead.
Absolutely disagree. Does anybody want to say anything before
before you hammer me? Wow. Go ahead.
No. It's not a hammer. It's from what I've seen from experience, right? So there was an organization that Garnet and I both work for, we went overnight at what felt like from being very waterfall and to what I call the Whiteboard Revolution. So we sent everybody on this 2-day agile bootcamp, and then like literally the next week, you just see whiteboards all over the place. People standing at whiteboards and doing stand-ups in the morning. Yeah, now we're agile. Now, in my opinion, if you've ever read or you've heard of the term shuhari, how do martial artists learn to do martial arts? They have to go through those 3 phases, shu, ha, ri. Now, in order, like if you know Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, that's the shu phase, right? In that phase, it's you learn the rules. You don't ask any questions because you don't know any better. It's because you need to get into the cadence. You need to get into the rules. In the ha phase, you start becoming aware that there are rules. You start questioning. Then you get to the re phase when you're expert. Where I've seen agile transformations break down is where an organization goes from nothing to re. So you go from not knowing anything to go to thinking you're the master. That's where the benefits of agile or of agility breaks down. If you have a mature organization or a mature team, then Garnet, I absolutely agree with you. Any Scrum ceremony is optional because if it's not adding value, you shouldn't do it. But in a mature team where you know the rules, you've been there, you're in that re-phase. So for me, it's a phase thing. If you're in the shu or half phase, you gotta do it.
Yeah, so we agree basically on everything really, because I was now talking to the re-stage where you can customize and tailor it. But for customization and tailoring, you need to have, I hate using this word, but I'm going to use it here. You need to have experts within Agile that know what that customization looks like. Because Ryan, like you alluded to, you would have matured to a phase where you know that this works and this doesn't work. But obviously you have to start from the ground up where you're following everything in the purest way. I agree with that.
It's not obvious though, but it's without that caveat, it's not obvious because I've seen time and time again, teams come together, immature, and say, okay, but this doesn't work for us and we want to rather do these things. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Got to follow the rules.
Yes, I agree with you. So from the onset, you have to follow the purest way of Agile, really. Whatever methodology that you decide to adopt.
To get to the benefit of it.
For you to get comfortable and benefit. Yeah. And then I believe that there will be a stage where you start improving the process for it to work for you. So that's the re-stage that I kind of jumped to. So yeah, so we agree for the most part, Ryan. We're not disagreeing, my man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I make a quick comment just on that. Like from my experience, what we've done in my organization is literally when we became agile, or transitioned towards agile, we had a 1 month purely of training. I mean, it didn't sit well with the senior VPs and the execs because, they're all about getting the most in terms of money out of their resources. And for 1 month, we were not delivering, right? So what we notice is that it's about the mindset, right? As a team, even if I can go ahead and do Scrum, run Scrum, as long as the whole business doesn't even know what Scrum is or Agile is, they're not going to come to your retros, not to your retro, to the reviews or whatever, the various Scrum events. So what we notice is that it's a whole mindset that you need to embed first. So they hired 2 Agile coaches whose sole job was to not only coach us, the teams, on how to actually, do Scrum, because we use the Scrum framework. Within Agile, there's a lot of frameworks. We use Scrum, right? They also trained each business unit so that the business unit understood what Agile is, so that they have got the mindset, so that we can get illicit, requirements and everything and work with them in a good way, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. So what I call what you guys were going through is the entrenchment of Agile, not training Agile, because I think training is part and parcel of entrenchment. And with entrenchment, obviously you have to present the value proposition of adopting Agile, which is that mindset that we're talking about. Because yes, Agile will not thrive within a company that does not understand Agile. That's from a mindset perspective. So that's a big A in Agile. And the small Agile is when you're implementing. So those are the different things. That's a topic for another day that we might have to devote for that. So I prepared a slide because there was a question that was posed in the previous conversation around what does the BA do within an Agile space. So what I did was I tried to identify the different ceremonies that are involved within Agile, and then I just put in some pointers of some tasks, some typical tasks that you might find in each one of the ceremonies. So you'd start off with a backlog refinement. So this is an activity. It's not a once-off thing. It's a recurring activity that is continuously done, because refinement of a backlog is basically you managing the work that the team has to deliver on. So if we go back to this slide, This is the Scrum team. And for the team to deliver, there has to be what they call a backlog. A backlog is a list of items that the team has to work on. And this refinement process is where you continuously refine the backlog. And typically the BA will be supporting the product owner and the business owner to prioritize what's on the backlog. And how do they do that? They will provide some information around the impact of a certain change so that you can see the priority of it. They can be eliciting requirements and producing developer-ready user stories. Why this is important is this will be an input in a sprint planning session. In a sprint planning session, I would expect the BAs to do a proper walkthrough. So you've got your user story well documented, and you're walking through the whole Scrum team about what that story is. So you are a BA, you're taking through the whole team. The team is made of developers, testers, and other disciplines that are represented within the Scrum team. So as a BA there, you're clarifying requirements, and you also contribute to the story sizing effort. So when the sprint has started, so which means these developer-ready stories have been prioritized within a sprint, they have been sized. So you attend the Scrum meetings where some questions might be asked. And during that sprint, some teams, what I've seen them do is you facilitate user acceptance testing, because your quality assurance people will be doing the functional testing. And then you as a BA, you might be asked to facilitate the UAT side of things, because this is the business-facing part of testing. In the sprint reviews, you can facilitate demo discussions. You'll be documenting feedback, because the review, you basically it's a show and tell session where you're showing people what has been delivered in that particular sprint. It's a reflection of the requirements that you might have walked through. So you'll be getting feedback, you document the feedback, and if there's any tweaks, then they will be embraced. The retrospective session, this is where the whole team actually reflects on how the team is working, where you're contributing to what is working as a team, what's not working, and you'll be voting on things that need to be fixed. This has been a quick breakdown of how I see a BA adding value to a Scrum team. Yes, Ryan.
So I've got a suggestion and a question, if you don't mind. I think this is worth a whole nother session. I think there's lots to it. It's very deep. And then my question is to you, Tendai. As product owner, do you sponsor feature development? And if products land or don't land, is it like the ROI of a project? Is it down to you? Are your KPIs aligned to those feature deliveries?
Oh yes, I think my product right now is the onboarding product for my company, right? So in terms of the numbers of people that we onboard, last year we revamped the entire registration process, right? And we had to produce KPIs and metrics in terms of how did we have more people coming to register, or what they call subscribe, or did we have less? So definitely my KPIs are linked to how much subscribers are registering or customers are registering. But I just want to call it out that my company is a non-profit organization. So in as much as we're not like banks and financial sector, but I think if I was to go into deep corporate, it would really be a matter of firing or hiring. But because we are a non-profit, they're not as strict, if that makes sense, right?
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't really paying attention to anything that was in the chat. Was there any questions there, Farai? You were monitoring the chat for me. Are there any questions that the guys were posting that we need to consider? Because we're about to drop off. No, so there's no questions in the chat window.
No, I think all the questions we covered.
Okay. Yeah. So guys, we've come to the end of this session. There were a couple of questions that I wanted us to address, but unfortunately we don't have a lot of time. We've got a couple of announcements that we wanted to make. We would like to encourage you guys to join the IIBA Zimbabwe chapter. As you know, we're now a fully fledged chapter from 2 months now, and we're looking for corporate sponsorships. So Ryan, if you would like to sponsor the Zimbabwean chapter, I know you guys don't operate in Zimbabwe. You're more than welcome, my good there. Would really appreciate your funds from there. And I also want to let you know, guys, that there's mentorship opportunities. I am volunteering my time. I can take on 1 or 2 mentors. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then we can make that arrangement. Are there any other announcements, Farai, from the IIBA board perspective?
No, I think you have covered everything. Tim, let's come through and let's join the chapter. And as you've heard in the past 1.5 hours, we are quite we are quite active, really, and we are keen to learn and we are keen to grow. So yeah, I think that's all for me. Thank you again, guys, for coming through this.
Nice. Okay. So before we wrap it up, Ryan, I want to pass it back to you. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up? And thanks again for your time. I know that you're very busy, but this was interesting.
Thank you for the invite. I feel really honored to be here to share. Thank you very much for that. If anybody has a question or on LinkedIn, happy to help out to whoever needs it. And good luck to everybody. And maybe we'll chat again. Hopefully I'll be invited back.
We'll think about that.
I didn't disagree too hard.
Tendai, any final thoughts? You're on mute.
Yes, thank you, Garnet, for being the host of this lovely session. I think it's always nice to just have an open mic session where we can really share questions, a lot of questions. Sometimes you get too heavy presentations with so much theory, right? So it's good to just to have this fireside chat or open mic session. Thank you to IIBA Zimbabwe. Thank you to Ryan for really coming through to this platform. And thank you to everyone who signed in on this platform. I'm really excited to see the development of the chapter, and here's to many more events. Thank you, Garnet.
Yeah, so yeah, on that note, we will close off the session. And I'd like to say, guys, thanks for making the time, and we apologize for a late start. We'll do better next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.